Marcus? Hey,
Oh,
Marcus, how you doing?
hi. Good, good. How are you?
Good, all right. This is my first Zoom meeting that I have actually ever called. I've gone to a bunch from,
Oh,
actually yesterday I went to my first Zoom funeral.
oh
So it's
wow.
no worries, no worries. Um,
That must have been pretty
it was a distant
interesting.
relative, but
Hmm.
so
It's different setting it up, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
but they make it as simple as possible, so that's good for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's not too bad.
Yeah, so you're in
Um,
school now?
yes.
Where you
We
going?
started early at WPI in
Cool.
Worcester. Hmm. We started early for this project because instead of going to classes this quarter, because
Hmm.
WPI splits it into quarters, I have we're just working on this one project for the whole time.
Okay,
I have
cool.
two other group mates that were in a meeting with our sponsor, and so they'll be joining us in a little bit. But
All right.
so let me so they'll be joining in a bit, but really quick, I can just go over what this project is about.
Okay.
First, are you okay with being addressed as Mr. Falcone or
Paul's good.
Paul is great? Okay.
Yeah.
um, My name is Marcus. I have two other group mates, Veronica, who will be taking notes, and then Carlos, who will also be here just to listen and ask any follow-up questions if they have them.
Okay, my
And
plan is actually to I'm recording this now,
mhm.
and I'm actually going to share it with Wellesley Media, put it on the local channel, and as a means of because a lot of people are interested in making their own documentaries and stuff, and stuff. So I'd share it with them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea actually. Um, so I sent you the document that kind of outlined what this interview would be about, but it doesn't go into the project too much. Did you have a chance to look at that at all?
As it did.
Okay.
Sounds like an interesting project.
Yeah. So
Why,
we
why don't
were
you recap it for the people viewing this?
sure. So we were reached out to by a Northwest artist by the name of David Neal, and he has come up with this idea for a project where he wants to somewhat digitize these oral stories that have been almost entirely lost to history because they have been written down very well, pretty much at all. There are some historians about maybe even 100 years ago that wrote them down, but they're in a very rough state where they're hard to read just for the average person. A lot of the names are in this kind of German alphabet that doesn't exist anymore, and so they can't
German.
really be read,
Hmm.
and they're grammatically almost entirely incorrect because the historian, instead of writing it down in maybe in standard English, they would write it down exactly as the chiefs or the elders that they were talking to would say. And
Mm-hmm.
so if they were speaking in broken English or something wasn't quite all there, that's exactly how it's written down. And so it's not too accessible to the public. And so with YouTube and all these podcasts that are here, they David Neal thought that it would be a good idea to create videos for these stories and tell them in a way that the average person could be interested and learn about these legends easily. So something along the lines of like how we learn about Greek legends or Norse legends. He wants these to have that similar type of widespread appeal and ability to be for people to learn from. And
Cool.
so what we're asking you about is because we're making YouTube videos and video editing in general, we just wanted to see if we could get any tips from experts because we are not. I've done some video editing in the past, and Carlos has also, but anything that we can learn would be greatly appreciated.
It's
I think,
actually sorry. It's very exciting now because uh, we're in the midst of the a big explosion in video making for regular people, and
mhm,
there's what you can do now is just grown exponentially. So it's a very exciting time.
yes, especially in the past with YouTube, it's kind of crazy how accessible that ability has been. Yeah. I think they say they're in the waiting room.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, there it is. Waiting
Oh,
room,
okay, great.
view, admit. Excuse my ignorance here.
No, it's fine. You're like
Hi
much
guys,
faster than other
Hi.
people.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Paul. Just call me Paul.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Carlos.
Carlo, very good.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. As I was just telling Marcus, I am using this as a. I'm going to be showing this on Wellesley Media as well on our local channel so people in Wellesley learn a little bit more about if they want to make their own documentary videos.
Yeah.
Hopefully, be able to share tips with everybody.
That sounds
Hear
great.
that? Hit me with your questions.
Sure. All right. Yeah, Carlos and Veronica, I already went over all of the other stuff before the questions. So
Okay, great.
just a little overview. So for our project, we will provide several YouTube videos preserving ancient native people's stories and legends in order to reintroduce this knowledge into contemporary audiences.
Mhm.
And so what we have from David Neal is we've received several MP3 recordings of these stories, and we want to accompany them with pictures and possibly music and sounds. Plus, we were also thinking open captions. Our current plan is to create sort of like a slideshow for the audio with loosely connected images to the transcript of the story. Have you seen anything in a similar format to this? And how do you feel about this idea for video making?
Well, this is a very exciting project. I think it's actually an important project as well. Being able to capture these stories is important to history and to the culture of the communities you're getting, and to make the video as exciting as possible, so as many people watch it as possible is an important part of it as well. So I was doing something vaguely similar when I was years ago. I was recording World War II veterans and their stories, because, as you know, a lot of those guys are in their 90s and
Yeah.
they're dropping like flies. So I want to get their stories as well as possible. And it's great if you actually talk to the original people, because, well, it's nice to have a picture of them when they're 20 years old and they're joining up, and compare it to them now. And when you talk to them, that 20-year-old is still in there. Especially when they're talking about these stories from their past, when it might have been the most exciting thing they or anybody will ever do. So yeah, this is a great thing you guys are working on.
Okay. For those stories, did you film yourselves in the same room? Was it sort of like an interview setup, or?
Yes, I was able to. I actually shot a lot of it within retirement communities, and
Okay.
usually set up right in their living room or a community room, and Mike them, and I was able to have a back and forth questioning and stuff, and they usually quite enjoyed talking about it.
Do you think that aspect is important, to have a face to the story?
I think it is really important. I mean, and I know you're just getting audio recordings, but if you can hunt back and see if you can get pictures of the people that you're talking to, that makes it a little bit realer to the audience. I think even still pictures are better than nothing.
Yeah.
If you can't get a still picture, or if you have a poor quality still picture, getting a drawing or some kind of illustration of the person might be helpful as well.
Okay, but something to tie it to people.
Yeah,
is definitely,
it makes it a little bit realer. And of course, since you're not making a podcast, you're making a video, you want to include as much visual representations as you can to add excitement to the project.
Yeah. Okay. We can move on then.
Okay.
So our team, especially Carlos and I, have experience working with Adobe Suite and Adobe Premiere, more specifically editing videos and different content for courses and professional use a little bit. Can you tell us about your experience with Adobe programs, or any similar, what you might recommend?
Yeah, well, actually, I started with Premiere how many years ago? when Premiere was not as nice as it is now. Then I switched over to Final Cut Pro for many years until the latest version of Final Cut Pro 10 came out, and it was kind of a mess, and a lot of people left it. They were trying to make it easier to use, but they also took away a lot of its best qualities. So I'm back with Premiere now. Although I've heard, and I've actually seen that they made a lot of improvements into Final Cut 10 to where it's much easier to use and it's much more professional at working. But I'm into Premiere now, so I'm sticking with Premiere because plus Premiere has the huge suite of products that for their subscription fee you have access to all of it. And even though I haven't made as much use of After Effects as I would like.
Yeah. So
let me just briefly say to not just you guys, but to the home audience that Premiere is a video editing app. Also, I'm actually creating a podcast. I'm actually editing my podcast within Premiere as well, because the audio editing tools are actually really good. And I just don't like Audition as much. I'm so used to Premiere since using it for so many years, and I don't really need to switch over to Audition, which is their audio editing app. And of course, I make a lot of Photoshop, use of Photoshop within Premiere, or do something partly in Photoshop and bring it into Premiere, and it's just tremendously useful.
That's interesting. You brought up audio too. So you do audio mixes inside of Premiere as well.
Yeah.
And, that's okay.
The tools there are really quite good. I haven't explored Audition enough to know what the Audition has that Premiere doesn't have, but there are only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
I think Adobe makes like at least a dozen different apps that you could literally spend your lifetime learning. So I don't even know all the ins and outs of Premiere, and I've been using Premiere for over 20 years, I think.
How would you say the learning curve is on Premiere now?
I originally learned Premiere from a book, and I would say it was quite daunting. But I didn't have a teacher. It's much better to have a teacher. If you go to your local community access TV studio, they will either probably be working with either Premiere or Final Cut, and you will have a teacher. I know at Wellesley Media, you can go. I'm not sure what they're doing now, but you could go to Wellesley Media, and my boss James Joyce would teach you how to use Final Cut Pro. And if you had a problem, he would talk you through it, and it would make it much easier. But it took me like a month reading a book to have any kind of skill with Premiere at first. Although later on, I took a 2-day seminar and using Photoshop, and Photoshop is also very deep. And my knowledge just skyrocketed in that time period because I had a good teacher, and I was focused on it for 2 days. So I think if you can have a human teacher, that's always great. Although I go to YouTube all the time to figure out how to do stuff, because if you ask almost any question, there'll be 6 people there who have done it before and show you how to do it.
Yes, that's true. Okay. In terms of video editing software, we were also looking into some free, sort of easier to get into programs, especially for some people who haven't used video editing before. It seems much easier, and also since we're just making YouTube videos, we're not making a movie. We thought that the quality that those could produce would be fine for us. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, I think if you're a Mac user, iMovie is really good. I mean, it's super easy to get into. You can pretty much pick it up in 10, 15 minutes. I think Adobe makes a Premiere Lite, which is probably much easier than the full version of Premiere. I don't know. I'm sure there are other easy to use editing softwares out there, but those are the ones I'm really familiar with. And of course, even in Premiere, you can get in fairly light and then dig into it later on. You don't have to be an expert at it right away.
I'd agree with that. One more thing on audio. When you are recording audio, what programs are you using at the time of recording? Just
Well, let me get some stuff out. Okay. Oh yeah. These days, the main tool I use is this little guy here. It's a H1 Zoom microphone. It's actually a little recorder, so I don't have a wire running from the microphone to the camera, which can be very helpful because, especially if you're recording people in a crowded room or something like that, you don't want people bumping into your mic cord or something. So people just hold this like this, and that's how I record a lot of the stuff I do. Get another one here. This is a little Tascam mic I use a lot too. There we go. So this is the recorder, and I plug it into this little microphone here, and I usually put it up under the shirt of the person, or if they're wearing black like I am, you can barely see it, or you can just attach it to their tie or whatever they might be wearing, and recording to this, and then you sync it. As with the other mic, you just sync this stuff up later, and you get much higher quality audio. And getting quality audio is so important for interviews. I mean, it's when we tend to think of video as being mostly about picture, but it's really at least 50% about sound. So I don't know what the quality of the audio is you'll be working with, but you might want to fine tune it a little bit. A lot of these audio programs, you can sort of clean up their audio a little bit, and I would cut out any little pops and stuff like that to make the sound unpleasant to listen to. I was actually editing some of my own audio last night, and if there's a little like click I make or a little unpleasant breath I make during the speaking, I try and cut those out. I had for many years, I had the unpleasant habit of going, and if I'm standing right next to the camera, that's all recorded into the camera. Not so much into the person's microphone, but you have to go back in afterwards and get rid of all that stuff because it's super annoying.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
We'll move on to the next question then. So there might be some difference between your media company and us making YouTube videos, but since there's more than one story that we want to present, we plan on turning these into a series of videos. And so how would you recommend keeping the same video format throughout them, or creating a brand while not being repetitive?
Well, for one thing, you guys might already be planning on doing this, but introducing the videos yourselves and talk about the series and what you're trying to do on it within the videos itself. Make it short, but having your own faces in there kind of personalizes a little bit more, and it comes across as more as a communication from one person to another rather than just an educational video you're thrusting upon them.
Okay. I don't have anything else to add, so I'll move on to the next one.
All right.
So copyright is something that we're very cognizant of, especially with YouTube, and their copyright strikes are pretty frequent. And so when we're trying to gain images and sounds, what type of issues should we be aware of, and how do you recommend we go about finding royalty-free or copyright-free images and B-roll and things like that?
Well, first I will tell you that I have stolen hundreds of pictures, videos, and music over the years that I've used on my YouTube videos. But I do not get high penetration. I think the biggest number of hits that I think one of my videos have gotten is shooting the Scream Tunnel at Wellesley College. I think I've got like $6,000 or $7,000. Wish $7,000. I got 6,000 or 7,000 hits for a video like that. Probably because it involves a lot of pretty young girls kissing guys and women as they're running down the street. most of my a lot of my videos will get like 20 hits because it's all Wellesley town stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do as much fiction stuff or entertainment stuff as I would like to. But I also shoot weddings, and that often involves using the copywritten music that is in the background of the weddings I shoot. And what will happen is YouTube will not just, it doesn't allow me to make any money with those videos because they have software for recognizing popular music and stuff, and they just demonetize it, which is not a problem for me. It's my goal in my YouTube page is not to make money with it. It's to share videos, and because half of what I used to do is shoot weddings and events. That's over now, of course, for a while.
Yeah.
But it was an important part of what I do for video and to make a living. So they will just demonetize stuff like that. My World War II interviews, whenever one of these guys or occasionally women would talk about their adventures, I would try and find pictures of the actual events. Sometimes I would even use clips from movies that were made about the events they're talking about. I've talked to several people who were involved in the Battle of the Bulge, which is one of the biggest battles of World War II. And yeah, they've never taken me down for stuff like that. And I've been doing it for many years. But assuming you don't want to do that, nowadays, it is so much easier to get non-copywritten music and stock video footage incredibly cheaply. This used to be like a major production for a large TV studio to get stock footage that used to be very, very expensive. I belong to there's a lot of these now. I belong to a stock company called Envato. They have stock video footage, photos, huge library of music, huge library of sound effects, After Effects templates. They have everything you guys could possibly need. But there are a lot of companies like this. Envato is just the one I chose. And I pay a subscription fee of like $16 a month, which is ridiculous. I mean, when you compare what this stuff used to cost, it's like a dream come true. And the stock, their material is all excellent stuff. It's I've actually created videos just made out of stock footage for friends and things. And that's not an all unusual thing to do because there's so much stuff to work with.
Okay.
And the music quality is actually really, really good too. Just about anything you can imagine. Their music clips are shorter and they are looping for the most part, which means you can just sort of lay it over itself over and over again if you want to fill out like 10 minutes or whatever. But the original audio is like 2.5 minutes long. Just loop it, loop it, loop it. I also use Epidemic Sound, which has more is more developed musically. It also has the same kind of high quality. It's easy to use. Plus, it is broken down to its component parts, so you can actually have imagine like any popular music is made from the audio track, not the audio track, the singing track, the drums, the bass, the guitar. They separate it out for you, so you can reconstruct it any way you want to. So if you have a section where you don't want you want singing for a while, then the singing stops, and you want your narration to come back in, and then the narration goes out, and the singing starts again. You can rebuild it like that. So an amazing tool. I once edited a whole science fiction movie called The Final Shift for Wild Beagle Productions, and I used something called Pro Scores, which is something similar for that to the other things, where the music is broken down into different component parts so you could reconstruct it to fit your movie. And they focus on kind of genre music. So it sounds like music that would go to an action movie or a thriller or a horror movie like that. And you just take it apart, put it back together again. And I'm not a musician, not at all. I can't play the piano or blow a horn or whatever, which is funny because I come from a family of musicians. But I had no trouble using these programs to create really interesting soundtracks. So
Really?
any of those three. At the end of this, I'll be sending you guys a list of links and stuff like that. So just make it a little bit easier for you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we're trying to write down
Yeah.
everything. I'm sure Veronica's going crazy. Okay, that's pretty good. How just a little bit about soundtrack. How important do you think soundtrack is against narration, and how, I mean, you're not a musician, but maybe how might different instruments and your experience be too overbearing or not as much?
Well, it depends all upon how the music fits with what you're working with, and the volume levels, of course. And but I would say in general, it just, I mean, if you have friends who are musicians, or you yourself are musicians, I would recommend you do that yourself. I mean, it's part of the fun of the project. You're getting more into the project, and it makes the experience at least twice as powerful with the right music. That's why you most movies are you'll hear the music for it going throughout. It reinforces whatever you're trying to say with the picture. Sometimes you want a counterpoint too. If you have music that goes against whatever's going on, that makes you sort of more aware of it. A famous example would be Stuck in the Middle with You from Reservoir Dogs. If you haven't seen that, maybe you don't wanna. It's an awful scene where somebody's being tortured, but they're being tortured to a light poppy song from the 70s. And it shows the mindset of the torturer, and the counterpoint somehow makes it more awful.
That's interesting. I know the song, but
Yeah.
I might look into the scene. I don't know.
You have a strong stomach.
What's the name of? I'm sorry, I just want to know what's
The movie
name.
it's Quentin Tarantino's first feature film. It's Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
It's a good movie, but it's hard to deal with. I heard that at the premiere, a lot of people walked out. So just
oh wow,
forewarned is forearmed.
Yes, Quentin can be quite graphic. Yeah.
But good. So ideally we want our YouTube videos to reach as wide an audience as possible. I know you don't have too much experience in YouTube, but maybe in promoting videos that you make in any way, shape, or form, how have you gone about trying to reach a larger audience? I mean,
Sure, I haven't really worked very hard at trying to create a big audience. Although I've used YouTube for many years, and frankly, I watch YouTube videos every single day, if not for education or how-to videos, just for entertainment. But I will tell you the videos that I shoot, at least for the town, if I shoot an event where a lot of people are at it, especially I've shot a lot of stuff at the high school, and people go to the video, they'll oftentimes everybody was at the event. I'm sure that like football games are very popular, and I shoot those. But if I shoot like a musical event at the high school, I'll automatically get a couple hundred hits from that, and that's just the start. And then sometimes those people send it all to their relatives and stuff who want to see it. So if you have a strong base, if you send out your video to a lot of people up front, and it's good, or it's of interest to other people, you'll automatically get a larger base. And the better your video is, the more that'll grow. I think our biggest thing that's ever come out of the TV studio is years ago we recorded there was a guest speaker for the graduation, and he came up with the "You Are Not Special" speech. And I'm sure there's like, I haven't looked at it recently. There's easily over 100,000 hits on that one, because people just like that speech. So there you go.
Thank you. In terms of viewership attention and grabbing your audience's attention, how long would you say that the average audience member can pay attention to maybe just an image on the screen or just B-roll footage as opposed to something more engaging like a movie or film like World War II film,
Mm-hmm.
would you say?
Well, I actually just started getting into TikTok. Of course, those are all really, really short.
Mm-hmm.
So it has probably effectively lowered my attention span. I was just talking to a friend of mine recently about the movie La Dolce Vita. It was an Italian movie from the 60s. It's a great film, but watching it today, I'm sure a lot of audiences will think, wow, this is really slow. Even though the images and the story is arresting and very powerful, I think today a lot of people might get bored. I remember I had a girlfriend who had never seen any of the early Bond movies, James. So I showed her Goldfinger. So besides, I forgot how misogynistic it is, but also there is a golf game in Goldfinger. They play golf and chat. This is like 10 minutes long. You can't imagine a modern Bond movie with anything like that, where they just, a conversation happens and they play golf in an action movie. So people's attention spans have gone down a lot. So there's a few tricks for keeping visual attention on the video. That was something, especially if you're working with a documentary or something. There's something called the Ken Burns effect. He popularized when he was doing the Civil War series. That is mostly talking heads and old photographs. And what he did besides using beautifully shot faces and stuff, is he'd have these old photographs and he would do pans and zooms. The picture was never completely still. Start with a wide shot, go to the point of interest very slowly. But when you have stuff like that happen, it keeps the brain occupied. It keeps a little more activated, I would say. So that's something to think about when you're working with still images. And of course, in modern YouTube videos now, people make a lot of use of stock footage, maybe too much, where somebody says, I was really happy that day, and they cut to a shot of a party, and not really necessary. Although I have to admit, it does keep your interest up a little bit. But try and don't overdo stock footage just for the sake of having stock footage. I think having the camera moving, or at least simulated moving, there's a lot to keep interest for the viewer. And the same goes for having background music and sound effects. If they're talking about a walk they took, you can find some audio of somebody walking through the woods, or wood sounds, birds singing, whatever, and all that makes it a little bit more, intensifies it.
That's a good point. There's a lot of people, or at least I forgot about adding sound effects, but now that I think about documentaries and things that I've watched, it does help. Especially I can think of like plane noises in the background.
Sure. Well, actually, I remember I had some old stock. I held some old footage of a World War II battle, but there was no sound on it. And I had the person talking about the battle that they were in, and so I just added all the explosions, the screaming, the guns going off and stuff like that, and it makes it bigger. It makes it feel more real.
Yeah. I think that is all the questions that I have, but based on what you've heard and what we've said, is there anything that you think that we should have asked, or anything that you want to talk about?
Well, there's another thing. If any of you are artists, or some people who are artists, having illustrations for old folk tales and stuff like that can just add a lot to your video as well. It kind of makes it feel more like a storybook, more like they're part of it. Might even make them feel reminiscent of when their children reading myths and fairy tales and stuff. I've had a lot of luck with Fiverr. That's another online program, well, not a program, but website where people have done remarkable work for me very cheaply. I was mostly using it for getting actors. I started a project, an audio drama podcast during the COVID crisis because I was at home and I had nothing to do. So I was able to hire a lot of actors from Fiverr very cheaply, and you can listen to them, listen to samples of their work, and actually they'll even audition for you if you like. But they also have a lot of artists, editors, what have you, who will do projects for you very cheaply. Sadly, a lot of that is because that they are in other countries where your American dollar would go a lot further. But if you wanted to have an artist illustrate a story, or even an animator illustrate a story, you can do that fairly cheaply. Of course, you wanted to use as much yourself as you can, and if you have other students, you do as much of that as you can. But this is a fairly cheap and easy way to get that part of the project done.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Carlos or Veronica, are there any questions that you guys wanted to ask? I know I didn't give you too much time.
I would just regarding something very specific. I don't know if this might be too hard of a question. But we're talking about also right now intro for a video. What would you say is the best way to grab the audience attention from the beginning? Like if we're gonna do a YouTube video, maybe you have watched a lot of videos that you say as a video producer and editor, like, okay, this is a good technique. Is there some technique that you would say, like, I like this one better, this one works better?
Yeah, I would say grab them fast. Especially if your project kind of has to be introduced and start slowly, and then get a little more exciting later on. You want to tease them with something exciting up front. What occurs to me with your project is if you're doing a thing with folk tales and stuff, having some kind of illustrations of the folk tales right up front with some exciting music, and then with some nice titles, and then you go into your introduction and go back into the story. I think that's a good way to grab your audience right up front.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and Veronica, you do not have any questions?
I mean, the only question I might have is if you have any experience uploading videos anywhere besides YouTube.
Yes, I have a Vimeo page as well. The nice thing about Vimeo is they make it very easily if you put your video up on Vimeo, they make it easy for you for the outside, the viewer, to download the video for whatever reason. It's very useful for me, for clients who they want to put the video on a DVD, or they want to just save it to their computer in case something happens to the original video. I like Vimeo a lot. Years and years ago, I put a ton of my stuff on Blip TV, and Blip TV just changed their service contract, and they took all my stuff down overnight, along with a lot of other people. And unfortunately, I hadn't saved a lot of that stuff, which would have been nice to have. So, but Vimeo has been up for a long time. YouTube, of course, has been up for a very long time. Oh, there's something I use for when I'm working with even my old videos, which I don't have the original footage for. I use something called 4K Downloader, which is a inexpensive software program for just capturing YouTube videos. And if I want to reuse them for whatever reason, I can capture them with 4K Downloader and then put it into my edit, and then just trim out the stuff I need, and I've got a useful video.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you for your time
I'd
again.
be very excited to see your project when it's done, or if you want to
Sure.
show it any in progress or anything to me, I'd be happy to give you any kind of commentary or anything like that you might find useful.
All right, and we'd appreciate that. So
right.
we will try and reach out.
Okay, great.
Thank
All
you
right,
for
thanks,
your
guys.
time.
All right, thank you
All
for
right.
your time again.
Yeah,
Have a nice
thank you.
rest of the day.
Bye-bye.